The rain hammers against the windows of Whitmore estate like accusations. Eleanor sits in her wheelchair in the east parlor, watching the drops streak the glass, distorting the overgrown gardens beyond. The mansion groans around her, floorboards settling, pipes clanging, the house itself exhaling its age through every crack and crevice. She traces the edge of her locket with papery fingers. The metal is warm from resting against her chest all morning. They'll be here soon. Thomas will arrive first, he always does, punctual to the point of aggression. Margaret will trail behind him, cataloging the estate's contents with her eyes, mentally dividing assets before Eleanor's body is even cold. Daniel will shuffle in last, apologetic, as though his very existence requires forgiveness. Eleanor's mouth twitches. Not quite a smile. She shifts in the wheelchair, her spine protesting. 87 years. Too many of them spent maintaining lies, polishing the Whitmore name until it gleamed like costume jewelry, pretty and hollow. Gregory built this family on transactions, not affection. She'd been young enough, stupid enough, to believe marriage meant partnership. The locket clicks open under her thumb. Richard's face stares back at her from the tiny photograph, forever 43, forever alive. Paint-stained fingers. That crooked smile. Her breath catches. Even now, after all these years, grief arrives sharp and sudden as a knife between ribs. The front door slams. Footsteps echo through the entrance hall, heavy, deliberate. Thomas? Mother? His voice carries from the foyer, edged with impatience. Eleanor snaps the locket shut. She presses it against her sternum, feeling the metal dig into bone. Harold will know what to do with it. Harold understands. In here, she calls back, her voice cracking like old parchment. Thomas appears in the doorway, filling it. He's built like Gregory, broad-shouldered, thick-necked, as if his body were designed to block exits. Rain darkens his wool coat. His jaw works as he surveys the parlor, taking in the peeling wallpaper, the water stains spreading across the ceiling like bruises. This place is falling apart. He doesn't greet her. We'll need to sell it immediately. Hello, Thomas. Eleanor keeps her hands folded in her lap, the locket hidden beneath them. He strides across the room, his shoes leaving wet prints on the Persian rug. Up close, she sees the gray threading through his temples, the deep grooves bracketing his mouth. He's 58. When did that happen? Margaret's parking the car. Daniel called, he'll be late. Traffic. Thomas pulls a chair close, sits without being invited. I've already spoken to Harold about expediting the estate settlement. No need to drag this out. Eleanor studies her son's face. She used to search for traces of herself in his features, the shape of his eyes, the arch of his brows. She stopped looking years ago. Thomas is pure Whitmore, molded in Gregory's image, hardened by the same obsession with control. The will is specific, she says quietly. I'm sure it is. Thomas leans back, crosses his arms. Harold mentioned you'd made some unusual arrangements. Unusual. The word tastes bitter. Is that what he called it? He was being diplomatic. Thomas's eyes narrow. What are you planning, Mother? Before Eleanor can answer, Margaret appears in the doorway, shaking rain from her umbrella. She's dressed in black already, premature mourning, Eleanor thinks, or perhaps Margaret simply likes the drama of it. Eleanor. Margaret's smile is thin, professionally sympathetic. She crosses the room with quick, efficient steps, leans down to brush her lips near Eleanor's cheek without actually making contact. Her perfume is cloying, expensive. You're looking well. A lot. Eleanor looks like death. They both know it. Margaret. I hope Thomas hasn't been badgering you about the estate. Margaret perches on the arm of Thomas's chair, possessive. Her diamond rings catch the gray light from the windows, throwing tiny rainbows across the wall. There's plenty of time for all of that. Another lie. Margaret has been counting Eleanor's remaining days for months, tallying inheritance against expenditure, measuring her children's futures in dollar signs. Eleanor's fingers tighten on the locket. The front door opens again. Claire's voice rings through the house, young and sharp. Grandma? Where are you? Parlor, Eleanor calls back and something in her chest loosens. Claire bursts in like weather, all energy in motion, her dark hair plastered to her skull from the rain, her jacket dripping. She's 24 and furious at the world, exactly as Eleanor was at that age. The girl drops to her knees beside the wheelchair, grabs Eleanor's hands. You look like hell, Claire says. Claire? Margaret hisses. Show some respect. I'm showing respect. I'm not lying to her. Claire's hazel eyes, Eleanor's eyes, search her grandmother's face. How are you really? Tired, Eleanor admits. Ready. Claire's fingers tighten around hers. For a moment, something raw flickers across the girl's face. Fear, grief, before she masters it. Don't say that. I'm 87, darling. I'm allowed to be tired. You're allowed to be pissed off that you're dying. You don't have to be gracious about it. Thomas stands abruptly. That's enough. Claire doesn't even look at her father. She stays crouched beside Eleanor, their hands still clasped. This is why Eleanor chose her. This refusal to flinch from truth. The minutes crawl past. Margaret makes small talk about the drive, the weather, the sorry state of the grounds. Thomas paces. Claire sits on the floor beside Eleanor's wheelchair, one hand resting on the old woman's knee. The gesture is unconscious, protective. When Daniel finally arrives, he's drenched and apologetic, stammering excuses about an accident on the highway. He's brought flowers, white lilies, funereal and fragrant. Eleanor watches him fumble with the stems, looking for a vase, and feels something like tenderness. Daniel has always been too soft for this family, crushed between Thomas's rigidity and Gregory's ghost. I'm sorry I'm late, Mother. You're here now. Eleanor gestures to the chair across from her. Sit. We're waiting for Lydia. As if summoned, tires crunch on gravel outside. Car doors slam. Lydia enters moments later, pale and red-eyed, clearly having cried the entire drive. She moves straight to Eleanor, collapses against the wheelchair, and sobs into her mother's lap like a child. Eleanor strokes her daughter's hair. Lydia has always carried the family's pain like stones in her pockets, weighing her down, drowning her. She's 53 and still apologizes for breathing. Shoo, Eleanor murmurs. I'm still here. I can't, Lydia's voice breaks. I'm not ready. No one ever is. They stay like that until the crying subsides, until Lydia pulls back, wiping her face with shaking hands. Margaret offers tissues with pursed lips, disapproving of such display. Thomas checks his watch. Daniel fidgets with the flowers. Only Claire remains still, her hand steady on Eleanor's knee. The clock on the mantel chimes 4. The sound reverberates through the house, deep and final. Harold should be here by now, Thomas says. As if on cue, the doorbell rings. Margaret rises to answer it, her heels clicking against hardwood. Voices drift from the foyer, Harold's measured baritone, Margaret's clipped responses. Eleanor closes her eyes. This is it then. The beginning of the end, or perhaps the end of the beginning. She's set everything in motion. There's no stopping it now. She thinks of Richard, of Samuel, of all the choices that led her here to this moment, this parlor full of people who think they know her. They don't. But they will. Harold enters, briefcase in hand, his face professionally neutral. He's been Eleanor's attorney for 40 years, her confidant for nearly as long. He knows every secret buried in the Whitmore estate, every clause written and rewritten in her will. His eyes meet hers across the room and she sees the question there. Are you certain? She nods once. Harold clears his throat. I apologize for my tardiness. The roads are treacherous. He sets his briefcase on the side table, removes his rain-spattered glasses, polishes them with a handkerchief. The gesture is deliberate, buying time. I believe everyone is present? We're all here, Thomas says curtly. Let's proceed. Perhaps we should move to the study. Harold replaces his glasses. There's more space and I'll need room to lay out the documents. Margaret's already moving toward the door. Thomas follows. Daniel helps Lydia to her feet. Claire stands, stretches, then grabs the wheelchair handles. I can manage, Eleanor says. I know. Claire doesn't release her grip. Humor me. They process through the house like mourners, though Eleanor is still breathing. The study smells of old leather and mildew. Rain streams down the windows, turning the world outside into watercolor. Harold arranges papers on Gregory's massive oak desk. The throne from which he ruled his empire, made his pronouncements, crushed opposition. Eleanor has always hated this desk. Thomas claims Gregory's chair without hesitation, as if it's already his. Margaret stands behind him, one hand on his shoulder, united front. Daniel and Lydia settle onto the leather sofa, pressed together like shipwreck survivors. Claire wheels Eleanor to face the desk, then leans against the bookshelf, arms crossed. Harold remains standing, backlit by the gray window light. He looks older than Eleanor remembers, 72 now, silver-haired, stooped. He opens the leather folio, removes a thick sheaf of papers. The last will and testament of Eleanor Grace Whitmore. He begins, his voice formal. Thomas leans forward. Margaret's fingers dig into his shoulder. Lydia reaches for Daniel's hand. Harold reads through the preliminaries, Eleanor's full legal name, her sound mind, her revocation of prior wills. Standard language, professionally distant. Eleanor watches her children's faces. Thomas is calculating, already dividing assets. Margaret is predatory, barely containing her eagerness. Daniel looks nauseous. Lydia keeps crying silently, tears sliding down her cheeks unchecked. Claire watches Harold, her expression unreadable. Before we proceed to the distribution of assets, Harold continues, there is a special provision that must be addressed. He pauses, glances at Eleanor. She nods. He clears his throat. Mrs. Whitmore has stipulated that the execution of this will is conditional upon the completion of what she has termed a truth quest. Silence. Then Thomas barks out a laugh. A what? A truth quest. Harold's voice remains level. A series of instructions designed to reveal certain information to the heirs before any assets are distributed. That's absurd. Margaret's carefully maintained composure cracks. You can't make inheritance conditional on some ridiculous scavenger hunt. I assure you, Mrs. Whitmore, it is entirely legal. Harold adjusts his glasses. Mrs. Whitmore has every right to place reasonable conditions on her estate. Reasonable? Thomas stands, his chair scraping across the floor. This is manipulation. This is my will, Eleanor says quietly. Every head swivels toward her. She meets Thomas's glare without flinching. She spent 87 years being polite, being proper, being the perfect Whitmore matriarch. She's done with all of it. I've left instructions, she continues. Clues if you prefer. Follow them, complete the quest, and the inheritance is yours. Refuse and everything goes to charity. Margaret's face drains of color. You can't be serious. I'm dying, Margaret. I'm incapable of being anything but serious. This is blackmail. Thomas's voice rises. You're holding the estate hostage to force us to participate in some sick game. It's not a game. Eleanor's hands tremble in her lap. She presses them flat against her thighs, willing them still. It's the truth. Something this family has avoided for generations. What truth? Daniel speaks for the first time, his voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor looks at him. Her middle child, her forgotten son, always overlooked in favor of Thomas's certainty or Lydia's sensitivity. Daniel has always suspected the Whitmore perfection was performance. He's about to have that suspicion confirmed.